Welcome back. The House Oversight Committee says it'll hold a vote next week to hold former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress. It comes after she defied a subpoena and failed to appear yesterday for her scheduled deposition, part of the committee's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The move comes after her husband, former President Bill Clinton, also refused to comply with the subpoena, resulting in Committee Chair James Comer's pledge to hold him in contempt of Congress as well. In letters shared yesterday, the Clintons outlined their reasons for not complying, calling the subpoenas, quote, invalid and legally unenforceable. Want to bring in Democratic Congressman of Virginia, Suhas Subramaniam. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee. So first of all, can you just take us behind the scenes on the contempt piece of this in regards to the Clintons? Because I've spoken to Robert Garcia, of course, the top Democrat on the committee, your colleague, and he has made clear that he wants to pursue this issue without party fear or favor. And so he has supported the idea of bringing the Clintons before them, specifically Bill Clinton. I still question where Hillary Clinton comes into this, but Bill Clinton has been seen in many of the photos released by the Epstein estate. So where does this stand? And do you support holding them in contempt for defying a congressional subpoena?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. We have to be consistent about the way we're treating people we're subpoenaing, right? You know, the DOJ, for instance, has not given us millions of documents. They're breaking the law right now.
Yeah.
We're not talking about contempt with them, right? So, you know, from the very beginning, I supported subpoenaing anyone who has information. You know, Republicans wanted to make this partisan. They wanted to target some Democrats. That's why they're talking about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. But Bill Clinton was, you know, in some of the files. And so we want to see what he knows and hear what he knows. So I'm going to continue to support having them come in and talk to us. But we should be collaborating with them and figuring out the circumstances under which they will talk to us, because they're asserting a privilege right now, executive privilege. And, you know, that'll be a legal fight. And so in situations like this, usually what we do is we try to negotiate a circumstance. And so they're going straight into contempt. And that makes it look very partisan. It is very partisan, because Trump from the very beginning has said he wants to make Democrats look bad in this whole thing and really deflect from himself and from others who he may know or be friends with.
So it sounds like right now you would not be in support of the contempt piece.
Yeah, it would be hard for me. You know, we'll see. You know, a lot can happen in a week. A lot can happen over the next month, right? But if I'd say this, if they're willing to hold everyone else in contempt and the Clintons were part of that, it'd be a different conversation. But right now, what we're looking at is they're only targeting the Clintons. That's very different and, again, looks very partisan.
I think that's a fair point. I especially think it was interesting to watch the way that Chairman Comer dealt with a question from one of my colleagues in the Hill Press Corps the other day, where they said, OK, I get why you want to talk to Bill Clinton. We've seen his face in the photos, though there's no sign of criminal wrongdoing there. The same can be said of President Trump. Why don't you want to call him in? Yeah. And Comer sort of struggled to square that circle, because it is a difficult one for Republicans on that panel. But I also think it begs the question for folks who are saying, OK, wait, I thought you guys would get all the documents by now. Wasn't there a congressional bill to compel the full release of the Epstein files? Where are the Epstein files from DOJ?
Remember, we issued a subpoena from our committee back in August,
yes.
Right? So you were talking about not complying with subpoenas. This administration has completely defied a subpoena. And then we passed a law that the president was basically forced to sign himself. Now they're in violation of the law, too. So who should we be holding in contempt in this situation, right? If anyone, it should be the Department of Justice for not complying with their subpoenas.
But also, what's the compulsion method now? Because you've got Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who helped to pass that bill, saying, OK, we want a special master to go over the files. OK, fine. But you need all the files in order to actually go through them. And so what are you doing from a congressional perspective to actually get DOJ either to comply with the subpoena or just comply with the law?
Yeah, I mean, they keep stringing us along. That's really what's happening. We keep looking into legal options, and they say, OK, here, more files are coming. They'll make announcements saying they have millions more. They said back in January of last year, though, that they had all the files, right? They were on Pam Bondi's desk.
Yeah.
They were already, you know, ready to release in March of last year, right? So they were probably lying, it looks like, because now they're saying they're finding more. They probably didn't make much of an effort last year to actually do this once they realized that the President Trump didn't want to go through with this. So now we are where we are right now. And if they continue to string us along, I'm going to support any legal action necessary and available to us.
But then also, isn't it that Pam Bondi was also supposed to send a letter to Congress explaining the redactions or why they withheld certain things? That was supposed to come like the first week of January. And my understanding is it still hasn't, right?
Again, that was part of the law that they are breaking now. Again and again, we're seeing them break the law that they signed into law themselves. And so, again, I think we need to continue exploring all our legal options at this point. But this administration has defied Congress multiple times now. If we go to court and try to get a court order, I wonder if they'll defy a court order at this point. All so we can cover up for President Trump Trump's friends, it looks like. That seems to be the motivation behind this.
Yeah, the central question in it still remains, why is there being so much done to not release these files when key members of the Trump orbit for years have been saying, let's release all of it? Very quickly before we go, I know that you are also closely tracking the Greenland question.
Yes.
The idea that there's a Greenland question still remains stunning. But you've been on the ground there within the last year, right? You went last year.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you've heard from maybe folks who are on the ground there, what we should know as we continue to question what the Trump administration is going to do next here.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense to do any sort of invasion or purchase of Greenland. Right now, Greenland and Denmark will let us do whatever we want there. They'll drill for minerals, even through all that ice if we really wanted to. No one's wanted to do it. And we want to build more bases there. We can do that. But the reality is they'll let us do it. They're a great partner. We also don't have the capabilities to defend a Greenland or really properly run a Greenland. We don't have enough icebreakers, for instance, to get through all that ice. And finally, I mean, the Greenland people don't want us there. That's the real obvious point.
Yeah.
And the base we have there is underfunded, too. I visited the base. It's a Space Force base with Air Force personnel. And all we have to do is fully fund that base and shore it up. And we're good to go when it comes to Greenland security. This administration, it makes no sense. I think this is another Donald Trump vanity project.
So I think I saw an estimate from NBC News that it might cost like $700 billion to buy Greenland. You could spend less than that and shore up the base.
Plus, universal basic income for every Greenlander. That's what Denmark does right now. It's very expensive to run Greenland.
Very expensive to run Greenland, and yet still an open question of what ultimately ends up happening there. Democratic Congressman Suhas Subramaniam of Virginia, thank you for coming on. We will have you back to keep talking about this.